Good evening, top fans. Welcome to another edition of the weekly review. As always, I am Jackson. I'm here with my good friend Bill, and
Hi. How is
we're
everybody?
here. Yeah, we're here to talk more baseball. Another week closer to baseball season.
Yeah, see, the problem is Jackson doesn't have a watch where he lives. It's Friday morning. I don't know why he's saying good evening, but it
Oh,
is what it is. I mean,
you know,
I can't
look,
help him, right? There's certain things people you can't fix.
depending on what time you record at, I wake up, it's dark outside. My brain's like it's nighttime. Go back to sleep.
Yes, yes. Jackson, are you excited about another edition of the weekly review?
I am.
So, Jackson, why don't we add kind of a component to the weekly review? So we're always just giving our top five, right? And by the way, if you're listening to this on Bleacher Brothers Sports Radio Network, make sure you're following us at Top Fan Rivalry on all of our socials, as well as Jackson on Instagram as Top Fan Stats Guy. So make sure
Okay,
you're
that's good.
you're checking us out there. Go to the webpage, take a look at some of the events that we got going on. We got a lot of things happening. But Jackson, let's start out with something different. Let's start a new segment of the weekly review. Let's just start it out with player watch. What's that sound like to you?
I mean, if it just sounds like we're going to talk about guys that they're the guys to watch this week, and once the season hits, we'll talk about people who are actually playing. Right now, right now we're stuck in free agent purgatory of will they sign, won't they sign? So I think we will kick off our player watch this week with Pete Alonso. You know, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Scott Boras is the worst. Instead of taking these 3 4 year deals that teams have offered, they want all the opt outs to go for more money in the next. It's silly. It's silly to think that Pete Alonso is going to be better this next year than he was any of his previous years. He just kind of is what he is at this point. It's the same with Alex Bregman. Like these guys pushing for opt outs, like they're a guy like Juan Soto or
Yep.
Shohei Ohtani. You don't get to demand those kinds of things if you're not superstar caliber, and they're not.
Nope. Nope. They're not. And also with Pete, you've kind of overcooked your grits. You've got a billionaire that you're negotiating with, and Uncle Stevie knows what he wants, and he gives you what he wants. And you know, either you take it or you leave it. You're hitting career batting averages like in the 250s, so be careful on how much you really are trying to negotiate. Take a long-term deal with the Mets. Take a 4 or 5 year deal with the Mets. You don't need $300 million, right? You're already going to make generational money. Jackson, I talked about this in another podcast recently where literally if somebody's making 26 million a year, it's just over 2 million a month. So say you're doing that for 7 years, just over 2 million a month. And we'll just dummy it down and we'll call it 2 million, even though I know it's 2,300,000,
Yeah,
whatever, or
whatever.
2,400,000, whatever. It's about 2 million. If you pay 20% in taxes, you're paying $400,000 a month in taxes. Now, you know these boys and girls aren't paying 20% in taxes, but let's just say that. So now you're making 1.6 million a month, which means on your paycheck, you're getting about $800,000 every 2 weeks. So imagine if you had $800,000, Jackson, pay off your house, pay off your cars, everything like that. But imagine if once you're done trying to spend the 800,000, you have another 800,000 coming in 2 weeks later, and then another 800,000 coming in 2 weeks after that. And you had that every 2 weeks for 7 years, for for 364 um, weeks. You had that every other week for 364 weeks. That's insane.
Yeah,
That is generational money, and I don't know what we're talking about. Anyways, I don't know.
yeah. But it's like you said, guys this late are either waiting for somebody else that they think is similar to set the market. Because some players are like that. You saw Kirby Yates signed right after Tanner Scott. We'll get to that in a second, probably. I'm
Uh,
sure Bill will bring that up. But
Maybe.
But Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman, their market was set with what the teams offered them as extensions. I would consider both the Mets offer and the Astros initial offers to both of them, respectively, as fair offers.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's tough to watch them really screw that up, but it is what it is. It really happens, right? So tomato, tomato, right?
Yeah,
So
you win some, you lose some, I guess.
100%, 100%. Okay. Do you have any other player watches that you want to talk about today?
I don't think so.
You mentioned Alonso. I'll mention Bregman. You mentioned Bregman kind of in passing.
Yeah.
Uh, Alex, dude, you got a nice offer from these guys. I don't know that you're going to get 200 million, but knock yourself out if that's really what you think you're worth. Yesterday it was funny, Jackson. I took three shortstops and compared just hits overall. So I took the amount of years that they played plus the amount of hits that they did and just did simple math and divided it. I did home runs, hits, and RBIs. I did Alex Bregman. I did Doug DeCinces. So I took an old third baseman, and then
Hmm.
I did Nolan Arenado. Uh, Doug DeCinces' numbers were tough because he played for, I think it was 15 seasons. And his last couple of seasons were injury plagued seasons. So, I mean, he had one season where he only had 30 hits or something like that. But what was interesting is Alex Bregman had less home runs than the other two. If you just do the simple math, he had more hits than Doug DeCinces per season and more RBIs, but less than Nolan Arenado. So he's an average third baseman that is demanding $200 million. Alex, you may sit out. You may end up sitting out. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you need to look no further than the third baseman contracts that have been handed out to players that have hit free agency roughly his age.
Huh?
Most notably
Uh-huh.
Chris Bryant, who now plays outfield and first base. That
Yep.
hasn't gone too well for the Rockies. And then you want to bring up the Nolan Arenado contract. The Rockies dumped that to St. Louis. It's not looking too hot. St. Louis is trying to pass that contract off just to get it off the books. It's a lot of money. And Arenado was light years ahead of what Bregman
Yep.
is now. When Arenado got traded, he was, an MVP caliber player.
Yeah. 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 No, it 100%. 100%. And I and
So
I
I
I
think
just go ahead.
teams are with the way baseball's evolved with the disengagement rule and the pitch clock and an emphasis on stolen bases again. Teams are starting to look at traditional defense first, positions and turn them into that again. And I think third base is one of those positions that people forget for a lot. There's not a lot of really good third basemen. There's
Yep. Yep.
probably a dozen of them in the Hall of Fame. Less. I lean less. And they're not. It's a glove first position, and the hitting's just the gravy on top. So
100%.
you're
100%.
you're not going to make corner outfielder numbers because you don't make as much of an impact offensively because it's prioritized that you field your position.
Yep. 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 And again, it's just frustrating, but I don't know. I'm probably going to write a Bills Corner about my thoughts about if you don't sign by a specific time. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for it, but I honestly, and Jackson, you and I have talked about this. I honestly think that you should have until a certain period of time to ink up your contract as a free agent, and then you have to sit out until a certain period of time. And then if you don't ink it up by a certain period of time, you got to sit out the whole season. And that would get guys to ink it up a lot quicker.
I only see a problem if they don't sign before the season starts. Do that,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, but somebody brought up a good point to me offline when I was mentioning this to him the other day. They said, I buy tickets. I'm a huge fan. I'll buy tickets regardless, is what they said. But there are people out there that will buy tickets because, and I'm going to use last year's groups. Blake Snell signed to be on my team, or what's his name, Jordan Montgomery, or even JD Martinez. I decided to buy tickets because JD Martinez was going to hit 35 home runs for me, which he didn't do. So, anyways, you get the point, Jackson. You get the point.
I do.
All right, let's go. Moving on. Number one, Jackson, what do you have in the number one category?
It was a late edition before this morning's edition, but Max Scherzer to the Toronto Blue Jays
Mhm.
for $15.5 million, Bill.
So it's
He's a guy,
inked up. It's complete.
according to reports, I'm sure the team will announce it or back out of it due to medical, but according to strong reports, he's heading to Toronto. Um, Toronto gets a really nice. I think Max Scherzer is more of like a three starter now.
Mm.
If it went when healthy, he's not going to be the guy that goes out there and throws 220 innings anymore. His arm just doesn't have it. He put
He
a
couldn't
lot.
do that 3 years ago when he was the Dodger, 4 years ago.
Well, his arm fell off because he rode that kind of mileage, and then they
Hmm.
rode it in the postseason. But Scherzer's still a savvy pitcher. He can help out Toronto's arms. And I think you get a guy that he's won a World Series. He's won Cy Young awards. It's a good cultural move for Toronto, especially we've talked about so much the last month or so about Toronto trying to keep Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette in Toronto. It's the signal that you're trying to get winners on your team because you're trying to the Anthony Santander signing and then Max Scherzer here. They're kind of going for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. 1 year deal with Toronto. Yeah, yeah. So here's the thing. I looked up because I was going to talk about him, but you beat me to the punch here. I looked up this 17 years in the league. He's 40 years old, 216 wins, 212 losses, 3,407 strikeouts. So he's up with the big boys. He's playing with the big boys there. He's played for 6 teams. Jackson, can you name the team that he's played for the longest?
the longest. My guess would be the Nationals.
Your guess would be right. Do you happen to know where he's played? Where he's played after the Nationals the longest? This might surprise you.
It's going to be Arizona.
It will
Or
not be.
was it
It will
Detroit
not
then?
be Arizona.
Detroit?
Yep, Detroit. Yeah,
Yeah. Because he went Arizona, Detroit, and then signed that massive deal
in
with the
Washington.
Nationals. Got
Yeah,
traded to the Dodgers and then signed with the Rangers or signed with the Mets, traded to the Rangers, and now he's in Toronto.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Mad Max Mad Max is. I'm glad that he's finally signed. He does have a little bit of petrol in the tank. He'll probably give him. My guess is between 10 and 14 wins if Toronto can score. That's the
Yeah.
key.
I think it's a win if you get 150 innings out of him.
Yeah, yeah. No,
For
agreed.
15 million, you take that 150, 150 of high three, low four ERA. That's all you need for Max at this stage in his career. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Keep you in ball games.
Yeah. So my number one, Jackson, is going to surprise you. I got a bunch of people here that are, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different moves and things like that. But my number one is going to surprise you. It's going to be teams that I felt like just missed the mark this offseason. Almost like I'm standing in a big hallway and I'm echoing in the hallway. Where are you at? That type of thing. And I've got 5 teams here that I listed that I thought maybe did not have the hot stove offseason that either A is going to make them better or that they anticipated. And 2 of these will surprise you. I'm going to say the White Sox, Miami Marlins, and the Colorado Rockies. That's like low hanging fruit, right? Nobody really big signed there. The
Uh,
White Sox can win 20 more games next season than they won last season, or this season than they won last season, and still lose 100 games, which is insane.
yeah,
Um, but the other 2 teams that were playoff in the playoffs last season and the season before, the Baltimore Orioles and the Houston Astros, I don't think got better. Baltimore lost Santander. Baltimore also lost Corbin Burns, which I think those are both key acquisition losses, right? And then Houston lost Kyle Tucker. They obviously lost JV. So those are also big losses. Now, the loss of Kyle Tucker, they did get back a number of prospects, including Cam Smith, who I think is the This is why I don't think Bregman's going to go back to Houston because I think Cam Smith will be up in Sugarland by the end of the season, and I think he'll be starting for the Astros in 2026. But again, what do I know, right? So, yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think a
you,
team that you haven't put on there
mhm,
that should definitely be on there. A team with zero major league free agent signings, Bill. The St. Louis Cardinals, who we mentioned, their entire offseason has been trying to dump Nolan Arenado. They haven't got any better. And
mhm,
we preach it. We preach it every year. The NL Central is not the strongest division. It is
no,
inexcusable for a team like the Cardinals, especially with the Cubs loading up and the Brewers doing their voodoo magic to win 90 games again next year with a bunch of guys you've never heard of. But the Cardinals haven't done anything. I think the Cardinals have a very good shot at finishing in the bottom spot of the division.
yeah, yeah,
Where they started last year is where they could end up at the end of next year. I know they have a bunch of prospects. None of their pitching prospects have panned out though. Some of their, position player prospects haven't, gone according to plan. I'm thinking Jordan Walker hasn't developed well. Mason Wynn is off to a good start, but he needs to be better. But they're just they feel incomplete. They feel old. They feel salary feels bloated. And it's inexcusable to make zero moves, even if it's just trading guys away to change it up.
you don't have to convince me. Preach, preach. Absolutely, absolutely. I did not include them because if Nolan would have gotten moved, I would have said maybe that's the case. They did lose Goldschmidt though, and so it goes to the fact that you have, I'm going to call them potential, two potential Hall of Famers in your lineup batting right by each other, and without pitching, you're not going to win your division.
Nope.
So, um, yeah, I like that. All right, what you got number two?
Number two, I'm going to talk about a team, a signing, and then a team. So, yeah. The Tigers assigned Tommy Canley. He pitched for the Yankees last year on a 1 year, $7.75 million contract. Nice little payday for Tommy there. He's a nice vet. Nasty changeup. He threw like 80 of them in a row in the playoffs, and they
Yep.
still couldn't hit him. But I think this highlights what's wrong with the Tigers' philosophy. And we talked about this before we started off the air, but I think the Tigers are pretenders, Bill.
Really?
Yep. I got the stats to back it up too. And don't
Okay,
call
I
me.
want to hear your stats because here's what I'm going to tell you. I think the Tigers or the Royals are going to win that division this next season. So convince me I'm wrong. Show me the stats. Show me the money, right? Show me.
So
Let's go.
the Tigers' second most innings pitched by a pitcher was 112
Okay.
in the third innings
Okay.
by Kenta Maeda, who had a 6.09 ERA, and Reese Olson, who only made
Okay.
22 starts. They leaned heavily on their bullpen down the stretch, and it worked for them.
Okay.
Uh, but if you have to do that for 162 games, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
You can't just lock everyone down with the good old bullpen game or the 6 innings of the bullpen, especially with how bad their offense was last year. Bill, they were 23rd and 24th in OPS last year, and they were 19th in runs scored. Do you know what team is right next to them? The Seattle Mariners. It is never good to be in the hitting statistics category of the Seattle Mariners. It's it's bad. I think they're pretenders. I think the Tigers are going to regress heavily. They're going to struggle. Even if they get off to a good start, they're going to have to find guys to throw more than 112 innings behind Tariq Skubal. I know Skubal threw almost 200 innings, but with how much guys get hurt and how much you need to be careful riding your workhorses, you can't depend on Skubal to go out there and win you every single game he pitches. He certainly has the potential, but you can't bank on it. Is what I should
Yeah.
say. So I think this just highlights, the front office instead of going out and getting another bat or exploring trade options for another bat, they're hoping that internally they improve. They do have a young team, but going out and getting another bullpen arm to maybe run the same bullpen strategy, I'm not buying it.
Okay. So here's my argument for that. And you're going to see a Bills Corner go up next week about this very topic, not about the Tigers, but about the pitching. You've heard me say this 1,000 times over, Jackson, and I'll say it 2,000 more times. Okay. Um, if you don't have starting pitching, you cannot win. A la the New York Yankees of 2008. They had Derek Jeter, they had um uh
Mark
A-Rod,
Teixeira.
yeah, Teixeira, and they still didn't win the World Series. They scored 15 runs a game, it felt like, but they gave up 16 runs. You cannot, and this is going to be in my article, you cannot offer participation trophies. You have to get your starting pitching to give you 18 outs. If you're going to go deep in the playoffs, forget making the playoffs. If you're going to go deep in the playoffs, your bullpen cannot be expected to get you 12 outs every single freaking game, which means you can't just get 15 outs. It means you can't just pitch 5 innings and say, yeah, I pitched 5 innings. You got to go six. You got to go 6 1/3, 6 2/3. Preferably, again, I've said this before, preferably, I want, if I'm the manager of the team, I want you to give me 20 outs as a starter. I want you to go 6 2/3 every night because that means my bullpen only has to go 7 innings, right? And then on occasion you'll have a bad day. You have to pull somebody out in the first inning or second inning or whatever. But historically speaking, if my pitching staff can give me 20 outs as starters, there's your win. So I accept your premise. I don't know that I agree because I think that the Tigers play in a division. Remember, they're going to play the White Sox 13 times this season. They're going to play the Minnesota Twins 13 times this season. They're going to play the Cleveland Guardians 13 times this season, right? So they're gonna play teams that are good or trying to reconstruct themselves, right? And so um, I just, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, Jackson. I
Uh,
like
uh,
I like what you're
look,
saying, but
like I don't buy. They gave 516 at bats to Colt Keith, who had a six. What is it? 689 OPS last year.
as a
It,
rookie, the
yeah,
season before he
um,
played in Double A.
yeah, and I understand that in development, but if you're trying to make the playoffs, you have to have better than that.
Hmm.
I'm just sitting here looking at the stat sheet, Bill. It's not good. Outside of Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter, it's not great. Parker Meadows, but he was injured most of the year. But the rest of these
Okay.
guys are sitting in the 600 OPS range, which is
I
not where you want to be.
listen, I'm going to get an episode together with you and Ashley, who is a huge Tigers fan, and she's a statistics girl. She would love to have this conversation. I'm sure she runs the AL with Ashley on Mondays. I'll get her on a weekly review sometime, and we can have this debate and this conversation before the season starts. This will be good.
Yep.
This will
All
be
right.
good. All right. Let me give you my number two, and then we're going to take a break to announce our sponsors again and remind everybody of who our sponsors are. We also want to thank Bleacher Brothers Sports Network for putting us up. You can find this in the locker room and on YouTube as well. All right, my number two, Jackson, is one that is sneaking behind everything, maybe a little bit behind the radar, although it shouldn't be. It sounds as though Dylan Cease is on the move in San Diego. Most recently, it's been reported that he might go to the Cubs. I have heard the Yankees. I have heard um, potentially the Diamondbacks.
The Yankees want another starter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my.
I've heard Boston. I've heard a number of different rumors. Most recently is the Cubs. I don't care about the rumors. What I do care about is the fact that the um, that he's on the move. Now, not only is he on the move, but I had heard rumblings that there was a two-player deal, and I can't remember the team now, but they were going to send Dylan Cease and Michael King, who I think Michael King has the shot if he stays healthy to get about 180 to 200 wins in his career. He's really, really good. And yet I'm trying to understand what the Padres are doing. I do understand that they're trying to dump salary because of the TV contract, but this almost feels like a fire sale, Jackson.
I I think a lot of it stems from the fact, you know, the late Peter Sadler, the former owner, did not care how much it cost to try and win a World Series. He was
Yeah.
financing out of his personal pocketbook, and now that he has sadly passed away from cancer, his family's kind of just they're not vibing with his the same kind of energy. They don't
Yeah.
want to be losing money on the team. Now, I get that, especially when it's millions of dollars. I don't physically understand millions of dollars leaving my bank account, but I understand not wanting to lose millions of dollars on the team.
Yeah.
But I think the team is locked into several really bad contracts that they can't get out of. And I, if I was the Padres, I wouldn't move Michael King unless somebody took the Yu Darvish contract or the Jake Cronenworth contract.
Yeah. See, Jackson, it moving the needle, it would be like you losing $1,000, right? You can get
Yeah,
through it. It's not going to feel comfortable, but you can get through it. A lot of these players, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand what
yeah,
you're saying.
but
I
it,
don't.
the
Go ahead.
Padres either need to maximize their prospect return or they need to dump other salary contracts. Otherwise, they're going to be just mediocre for the next 6 7 years.
Mm-hmm. 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 100%. 100%. Okay, before we get to number three, because I'm going to come back around to the Padres here in a second. Before we get to number three, we want to thank the pizza store at or by OC Local in Laguna Hills. You're in Laguna Hills, it's South Orange County to be exact. Get off on Alicia, head on down there. Tell them that Top Fan Rivalry sent you. They got great pizzas, they got great sandwiches, they got great salads. Jackson, I saw a video on, I think it was Instagram last night, where somebody did something about their sandwiches. It was amazing. Um, that is good, good, good stuff. That
Sounds
being
delicious.
said,
I'm hungry already.
yeah, that being said, staying with the food aspect, I want to thank our friends over at Ruby's Diner in Laguna Beach. They are one of our corporate sponsors. We do have an event over there at our website for February 21st. We're doing a rooftop. We're doing dinner and a movie. We are not announcing the movie. We don't want to violate any rules or anything like that. But I'll just tell you right now, the movie is very family friendly. For $20 for adults, 15 for kids, you can get a hamburger or a hot dog, fries, and a drink, and all you can eat popcorn. Movie time is I think 7:15. It's right across the street from the beach. Jackson, have you been to this Ruby's before that we're going to?
I have overlooks the ocean right on Pacific Coast Highway for you Californians out there, PCH.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It'll be nice. It does get a little chilly in February, so maybe wear a jacket.
Yeah, I would recommend that. And Jackson, I think Jackson knows the manager a little bit. So if the manager doesn't do their job, make sure that you let Jackson know. He'll get all over. He's had some interactions with that manager over there a little bit. I don't know how well he knows them, but I just know that he can get in their face. So,
Well,
anyways,
yes.
we want to thank Rubies. We also want to thank Gravity Red Productions. They are the production extraordinaire. If you need somebody to do a professional commercial for you and or filming for you, call these guys up. Look them up on the website. Call Darren and say, "Hey, I heard you on Top Fan Rivalry." Um, that's why I want to be there. So those guys are great. So that being said, Jackson, those are our people, right? Those
Yep.
are our people, and we're gonna have more to announce here in the next week. So, and again, we want to thank Bleacher Brothers Radio Sports Network or Sports Radio Network for helping us out. It's absolutely a fantastic, great thing that they do. Life is wonderful. So, Jackson, what do you got for number three?
Number three, the Reds made a pair of moves this week. I don't know if you've been paying attention to Cincinnati, but they went out and acquired in a trade with San Francisco Taylor Rogers. I had to write it down because his twin's name is
Tyler
Tyler.
Taylor.
Tyler Taylor. They're both really tall. They both throw submarine. One's lefty, one's righty. But
Yeah.
Taylor Rogers is moving from San Francisco to Cincinnati. I really like this move. Taylor Rogers is a premier lefty specialist, and I think it's going to help the Reds really compete in that division. You know, big lefties that come to mind in that division: Kyle Tucker, uh, as a guy you might want to get out. The National League is chock full of lefty power hitters. Ranging from Shohei Ohtani to Freddie Freeman to Matt Olson, Bryce Harper. This sets the Reds up to compete for the division and maybe make a run at the postseason. So that was the first move I really liked. And then they picked up Austin Hayes on a nice
All
little
that.
five-year contract. Austin Hayes was an all-star as recently as 2023. He was kind of maligned last year with a couple of really weird injuries, a back injury, and then a kidney infection of all things. Kept
Yep.
him sidelined for most of his tenure with the Philadelphia Phillies. but he'll form a nice platoon in that outfield. They really need someone who can hit left-handed pitching. They have a very lefty heavy lineup, but I think, the Reds have like a nice young team, and those are two nice veteran pieces that can really help them push for the NL Central, which, as always, is wide open.
Yep, yep, yep. As always, it's wide open. You're absolutely right. You're
You know,
absolutely right.
it's always the Cubs, the Cubs or the Brewers or the Cardinals look the best on paper, but it never plays that way because it's the NL Central. So,
True. It's true. It's very true. Yeah, I'm I like the Reds. The NL Central is an interesting division for me, Jackson, because I don't know. Um, yeah, I just don't know if it's going to be the Reds or if it's going to be the Cubs. Cardinals, I'm not sure about,
yeah.
but the Pirates are also very good too. And if Paul Skeens has a year like he had last year, this would be awesome.
Over a full season, absolutely. And the Pirates have lots of really good young pitching between Paul Skeens and Jared Jones, Johan Oviedo. You know, the shadow there. The Pirates could be a team too. So that NL Central, I think you're right, it's full of history. It's got some of the oldest teams in baseball in it, four of them, and some of the best ballparks in baseball. I think
Yeah,
that's what we really talk about.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, Jackson, my number three takes us back to um to San Diego, and I got a little stat here pulled up, my friend.
All right, hit me with it.
I've got a little stat pulled up, which I think is going to surprise you, although I don't. Yeah. Huh. Okay. All right. So here's my little stat that I have pulled up. Um, just oops, I'm just adding to it. So Han Sung Kim, here's where I want to go with this. We'll start this by saying this. Han Sung Kim is now a Diamondback. Okay. Again,
Uh,
a
he's
fan
a he's a
favorite.
he's
I mean,
he's a
not a Diamondback,
he's a
a
he's a
Ray.
Ray. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Ray.
about.
I'm sorry. He's now a Ray. I honestly, um, I think that this is a very interesting move. And here's where I'm going with this. Number eight in the payroll, the projected payroll for this season is the San Diego Padres at 197,497,953. Okay. Their projected that's their projected salary for this season. Mind you, there's a lot of teams that like the A's are projected at 54 billion. Um, the Cleveland Guardians projected at 76 million.
Uh,
But
I think it is. You got to know a lot of arbitration isn't done still.
hmm
So there is
hmm
some missing money there.
yeah, my my thing though, Jackson, with this is San Diego Padres. You've tasted the playoffs, you've tasted success. You were in the league championship series in 2020. What was it? 2022, I believe. You were in the league championship series against Philadelphia. Um, Dumping Sung Kim, I don't know was the best move for them. That is a fan favorite. It is a great move for Tampa Bay, though. It is an absolutely great move for Tampa Bay. The projected payroll again, or adjusted total payroll, is going to be 206. Their projected payroll is 197. Are they dumping salary? Is that what they're doing here?
I think it's that, and I think the Padres just have way too many guys that can play middle infield. I know it's a joke. Jackson Merrill's a shortstop turned center fielder, and I know a lot of their top prospects play the infield. I think what is a big thing though that the Padres don't have a luxury of is you got to remember Kim had shoulder surgery and will not be ready for opening day. And I think the Padres can't afford in the payroll bind that they're in to put money down on a guy that may or may not be the same.
Well, you have insurance. Well, you have insurance, but
You got to remember though the Padres had to borrow against the club, and the
mm,
MLB chastised them for that. So it they can do some things. They have insurance, but it from a baseball standpoint, it makes sense to me. You're set on the infield. Kim would be a nice piece,
yep.
but you got Tatis can play shortstop. Xander Bogaerts can play shortstop. Jackson Merrill can play shortstop. All those guys can also play second base. So I think it was more of, it's getting really crowded in here. And,
Yeah.
if you're gonna slash payroll, that's one of the easiest ones. You just let a guy walk.
Well, it's interestingly enough, I mean, yes, he had a very bad season last year because of injury. The season before, he had 140 hits, 17 home runs, 38 stolen bases. So, and he's young. He's coming into his year 29, right? And so there's a lot of things that he can do there, a lot of opportunities that, you know, he can go forward with. I think it's a payroll dump, and I don't know. Again, if you're the Padres, you play the division with the Dodgers, and I'm not being a homer here, but you look on paper for at least the next 5 seasons, the Dodgers are going to have Glass now, Snell, Roki, Shohei, and Yamamoto as your top five, right? So when the Dodgers come into town, you're gonna, and it's a 3 game series, you're gonna see at least three of those five pitchers as long as they're healthy, right? If you're the
So never,
Padres,
right?
right, exactly. If you're the Padres, the Giants made themselves a little bit better. Colorado's done nothing. And Arizona is kind of hovering, although they've made some moves, they're kind of hovering. But you don't want to slide back where you're battling for third or fourth place and you're missing the playoffs. You just don't want to do it.
Well, yeah,
So,
I agree with you that this definitely hurts their team, especially their depth, because Kim can play all infield positions.
yep.
I see why they did it, especially it's 14.5 billion a season. That's a tough contract to hand out when you're paying Xander Bogarts a lot of money and you're paying Tatis a lot of money, paying Manny Machado a lot of money.
Yeah.
It you got to cut somewhere, and I agree with you. I think the Padres are in this spot where they're stuck in the middle ground. Either they need to commit to spending and be at a loss, for the next couple of years,
Yep.
to keep the fan base on board, or they're going to blow it up to save the bottom line.
Yep.
And I don't agree with that second one ever. If you spend yourself into a hole, you just kind of write it out. Is my opinion. But
Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, Jackson, we're at number 4 now for you. Where are you at?
let's head to Kansas City. I think the Royals made another really good move. We talked about
Carlos
the Royals
Esteban.
all. Yeah, Carlos Estevez to Kansas City. I really like this. Estevez, with the Angels was really Jekyll and Hyde, but he has shown flashes of dominance. Um, as a closer, I think Kansas City, with how they develop pitching, how they manage pitching, they're going to make this guy really good. Uh, if you remember Wade Davis, they took Wade Davis from the Rockies. He was a good closer with the Rockies, and he became near unhittable with Kansas City.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think Kansas City getting a true closer, which is what they really needed last year, they couldn't find, really bolsters them. And I like them to win the AL Central next year. I think they have a really nice, rounded roster full of veteran players and young guys. They probably need another batter too, but who doesn't?
Yeah.
But I,
Who
I
doesn't?
think I think
Exactly.
Carlos Estevez is going to anchor a really solid bullpen from Kansas City. It, I like it. I love the signing. Again, I think he's gonna be just like Wade Davis, similar profile, hard fastball, devastating slider. I think they're really going to tap into this guy and make him really, really good.
Right. I like this move because again, the Central divisions could probably be won with plus probably plus or minus 89 games. And if you're talking about plus it, I'm gonna say maybe 90 wins, right? If you're in the AL East or the NL East or even the NL or AL East, NL East, or NL West, you to win that division, you're going to need plus or minus probably 94 wins. So I like this move for Kansas City. This is a good move. It's a very good move.
Yeah, for a lot of people who don't follow any team other than their team really closely, this is a guy I think on his best can be one of the most dominant closers in the league. It's just finding that consistency. I think Kansas City can help him with that. I think the ballpark will certainly help. It'll hold a lot of it will hold a lot of deep fly balls.
Yes. The deep fly ball caught. I love it. I love it. Okay, my number four, Jackson's going to surprise you a little bit. I'm going to get off the players for a second and focus in on the game for a second. My number four has to do with how you going to win games. And to me, I get exit velos and velocity and launch angles and all that crap, but it really goes down to get them on, get them over, get them in. And so I would like to see more teams, even teams that have a lot of power, the Dodgers, the Yankees, some of these other teams that have a lot of power in their lineup, to use the get them on, get them over, get them in philosophy a little bit more. And I honestly think, Jackson, if this year, if more teams kind of push towards that philosophy, you'll see, you'll see probably teams steal 8 to 10 games because of that. And that could be the difference between October golfing and October playing baseball.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
stop me if you've heard it before, but I say play the soft or play the small ball.
Yeah, and I mean, and to piggyback onto that, to my number five, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Um,
go.
there's been talks of Major League Baseball trying to institute rules for the starting pitcher to pitch X amount of innings or throw X amount of pitches, you know, before he leaves the game. Baseball's a game of adjustments. So my number five is going to be if teams execute that philosophy, like I said, get them on, get them over, get them in, and focus on the fundamentals of baseball, we will see the death of the max effort pitcher. Because how devastating is it for you to throw as hard as you can everywhere and then, every base runner that gets on base
Mhm.
just gets inched over. He steals a base, he gets moved over, and he gets sacked flied in. You gave up, you walked one batter and you gave up a run, essentially. It teams need to shift their philosophy. I think baseball is going to start shifting. The on base trend, the obsession with on base percentage and OPS, which is just a combination of on base and slugging. Um, I think it's kind of hitting its critical point. I think teams are looking into ways to find players who perform the little things better. You're going to see a lot more teams. Steals were way up last year. I think this next year we're going to see lots of teams really try to utilize the speed that they can get. Like I talked about earlier, they're turning third base back into a defense first position. Why? Because the more outs you give to another team, the more likely they are to punish you. So teams are really going to start emphasizing. You're going to see the return of player profiles of guys who could get on and steal, who can execute the hit and run, guys who can bunt guys over. I think baseball's going to shift philosophy to break this pitching dominance and kind of end, this whole trend of, throw 101 miles an hour every pitch because you're going
Mhm.
to have to start, pitching situationally rather than trying to just blow everyone away.
100%. And the reason why you I mean, things have changed now, but the reason why you look at those things, right? And the reason why um, if you get back to the fundamentals of it, right, you make it so much more of a simple game than trying to win it on one swing. Um, when Major League Baseball tries to legislate everything, and I'm going to use that term for a second, they take away the fundamental of the game. Um, I remember in college, I wrote a paper on the average state constitution length in the for the first 13 states, 13 colonies. And I think it was like 20 pages was the state constitution. That was like the max. It was you had some that were a little under that. But the average state constitution now is like 57,000 pages because you legislate everything. You can only put your socks on left to right or right to left or just everything that's silly. And when you start legislating everything at the MLB level, you take away the basics of the game.
Yeah. And absolutely, the basics of the game is how you win baseball. Look, they flash this being the stats guy every postseason, that the team that out homers the other team wins the game.
Hmm.
And that stat to me is redundant. Well, duh, the team that's going to score more runs by hitting the ball over the fence wins the baseball game. In other news, but I think the teams you see that are really good in the playoffs make every base run count.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
They
eliminate
don't,
the mental mistakes. They can't control always the physical mistakes, right? Because you can't
sure.
control climate. You can't control when you're down when you're down in Atlanta and it's 97 degrees with 100% humidity, the ball slipping out of your hands.
Nope.
You can, however, control the fact that you've got a runner on second and you're down by one in the eighth inning, ground ball to right field, and you decide to airmail it home instead of hit the cutoff man. And now that guy scores and the batter ends up on second. And now you just put the winning run on second because mentally you wanted to show everybody how tough you were.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see that. It's going to be the return of the small ball. Look, I know it's not as sexy as the home run. Like, I'm a
Doesn't
Braves
matter.
fan. I'm a Braves fan. I love the home run ball. They hit lots of home runs. It's great,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't matter.
it's maddening to watch a team. The Braves struggled in the second half last year because they were sitting around waiting for the 10
Yeah,
run home.
yeah, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter exactly. Okay, Jackson, my number five is going to be pretty simple. We have 21 days or 20 days, I'm sorry, until the first game. It's the Cubs against the Dodgers. It's February 20th. There's your first spring training game, and then you unleash a slew of games. Spring training games are fun. You get access to the players a little bit more. It's a lot of fun watching the game, but this is time for people to work on their fundamentals. So if you're buying a ticket, don't expect Shohei Ohtani to play all 9 innings. He'll
No,
get one or two at bats, maybe.
you're
And then it'll be an early day for him.
you're essentially paying to watch a scrimmage.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. So,
That's all it is.
but again, baseball's back. We got 20 days and baseball is back. There's a lot of fun things that are going to be happening about that time, but pay attention. The other thing that pay attention to the injury reports and pay attention to the teams that did very little. Philadelphia, St. Louis. Pay attention to those teams and what happens during the injury. But remember, you're playing 162 games inside of about 190 days. And then add in your spring training games and things like that. Now, you might not be playing on all those, but you're playing about 162 games on like I said, an average of about 180, 190 days. Your body's going to wear out. Your body's going to get tired. You're going to throw out an elbow, an arm, whatever. But pay attention to those injury reports. But everything starts, Jackson, in 20 days. Giddy up, right?
Let's go. I'm excited.
So, yeah. Any honorable mentions that you have, Jackson?
I have one, and
Go.
I don't know if you've seen the clip from Game 7 of the Dominican Winter
I
Series.
did. I know exactly where
Uh,
you're going with this.
Ray's top prospect, Junior Caminero, hit one of the longest home runs
Beautiful
I've ever
runs.
seen in my life. I think
Yep.
they taped it at 4:54, the dead center field,
Dead
to
center.
go ahead in the ninth inning. Uh,
Yep.
his home run trot 59 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. The first 15 was him turning the dugout and hyping the boys up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but people always talk about how much they hate the bat flip and the emotion, but like, come on, he just hit a go-ahead home run in the game 7 of
Yeah.
essentially the World Series of the Dominican Republic. That's pretty cool. And the pitcher had his hands on the hips, like, really, this guy, but he didn't throw at anyone. He didn't start a brawl,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's just having fun, man. It
The only thing I got to say about that, Jackson, is it's got to go both ways.
Yep.
So if a pitcher gets fired up because he makes a strikeout or strikes out the side with the bases loaded, historically, batters don't like that and they take offense to that. Whereas you can't take offense to that. If a batter can bat flip or look into the dugout, and say, yeah, let's go. Pitcher's got to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, it's a game.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah,
it's a child's game. What do you know?
yeah. It was the game that we all played in our backyard until the streetlights came on.
Or you broke a window.
Yeah, or you, or you were good. or you hit it over the fence into the dog, where even Benny the Jet wouldn't go after it. By the way, that might be a little hint on what movie we're showing uh, at Ruby's, but you know, we can't announce that, so we'll
But
keep it there.
yes, that was my honorable mention.
I
Just look
love
up
it.
Junior Caminero walk off home run and
Yes.
just enjoy the Spanish commentary going, I can't believe it. I can't believe it over and over
Can't
again.
believe it.
So great.
Awesome. All right, top fan rivalry supporters and followers. First of all, again, let's thank AJ and the boys and girls over at Bleacher Brothers. Thank you for putting us on. We super appreciate that. We're loving being on their sports network. Hope you are enjoying it on a Friday. This is also in the Top Fan Rivalry locker room. Go to topfanrivalry.com. Click on the team store. You can grab your locker room right there. You can even click onto the locker room site. Locker room is relatively priced. We're going to update some things in there. Don't pay full price. You ask Jackson, he will give you a code. What's the code, Jackson?
Code Jackson 10% off.
Whoa, code Jackson 10%
Get
off.
our weekly reviews, our other shows, get exclusive articles we're going to be putting in there. I write a lot of articles, guys. You can read them on topfanrivalry.com.
There you go. There you go. So yes, absolutely. Jackson writes a lot of articles. Now, everybody, keep in mind, Friday, today, there are two major things happening with Top Fan. Number one, number one is the box break at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central. I mean, 10 p.m. Eastern. If you are a baseball card collector, there are still 6 teams there. Jackson, go get yourself a team. There's still a couple of teams that are $5 or $10. I don't know what you're waiting on. Go use yourself a team if you're a card collector. Number two, use the discount code FLASH40. That is FLASH40, spelled FLASH, all caps 40. Till midnight tonight, that will get you 40% off anything you want in the team store. Knock yourself out. It's a Flash 40 sale. We're only doing it for a couple of days. Go check it out. Um, Again, want to thank the sponsors, Ruby's, the pizza store by OC Local. We want to thank Gravity Red Productions. These are all people that make these things possible for Top Fan. Keep doing what you're doing. If in fact you are a business and you want to learn about our sponsorships, hit us up. We'll be happy to talk to you. Jackson, any final words?
Just 1 week closer.
Awesome. 1 week closer. That's right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.